Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
This happened a few years ago, right after I graduated college. I was making barely enough to survive on my $12 an hour job at a credit card processing company. The pay wasn't great, but at least I learned a lot about how credit and debit card transactions worked behind the scenes. A few times each year, I would make the long 8-hour drive back home to visit my family. The route took me through miles of wilderness, mountains, small towns, and endless fields. During these trips, I had to be careful with my money since I didn't have much to spare. During one of these journeys home, I stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere to grab some food and use the restroom. What I didn't realize until later was that I had either lost or someone had stolen my backup debit card at that location. This was a card I rarely used, and it looked identical to my main one, so I didn't notice it was missing. A few days later, I got a call from my bank telling me that my account was overdrawn. When I checked my account, I saw charges totaling around $400, which was a huge amount for me at the time, nearly half a month's rent gone. My first thought was to file a chargeback with my bank, but because of my job, I knew that merchants get hit with a $15 fine for each chargeback, plus they get a bad mark on their record with credit card companies. Too many chargebacks and a business could lose their ability to process cards entirely. Usually, small businesses aren't at fault when cards are stolen, so I decided to call the gas station directly. What made me suspicious was that all the charges came from the same gas station where I had stopped. It seemed likely that an employee had found or taken my card and was using it at their workplace. I figured I'd call the manager, explain what happened, ask for a refund, and let them know they might have a dishonest employee. I called the gas station and asked to speak with a manager. A woman answered and said she was the manager. I explained about stopping at her gas station recently and either losing my card there or having it stolen. I told her someone had been using my card at her location, and I hoped we could resolve this without a formal chargeback process. The manager got defensive right away. She blamed me for being careless with my card. When I tried to explain about the charges and asking for a refund, she told me that perhaps I deserved to lose that money as a lesson, and that I should have noticed my card was missing sooner. I was shocked by how rude she was. From my work experience, managers usually took employee theft seriously and wanted to help. I asked for the owner's contact information, but she claimed there was no owner, which made no sense since every business has an owner. When I kept asking, she ended the conversation. I was shaking with anger. I told her I would be calling the police, to which she told me to go ahead. After hanging up, she tried calling back, but I didn't answer. I was now crying from anger, feeling helpless and frustrated. I had a strong feeling about who had my card, but I needed proof. To be honest, I hadn't really planned on calling the police. Law enforcement rarely has time for small credit card theft, but this was a tiny town with maybe 100 residents, so maybe things would be different here. First, I called my bank and asked for the exact times when my card was used. They gave me the transaction times down to the minute. With this information, I called the police department in that small town. When I reached the police, I spoke with a female officer who listened as I explained everything about losing my card, the charges, and my conversation with the manager. I was surprised when the officer told me the gas station was just 5 minutes from her location and that she would stop by to check their cameras. She said she'd call me if she found anything. I hung up feeling a bit hopeful but not expecting much. A couple of days passed, and then I got a call from the officer. She told me that she had visited the gas station and looked at their security footage from the times I had given her. At those exact moments, they caught the manager on camera making purchases with what looked like my card. The officer said the manager was signing receipts for the exact amounts that showed up on my account. The officer told me they were charging the manager with felony identity theft, since using someone else's card without permission is identity theft on top of monetary theft in that state. She asked if I wanted any money back, but since my bank had already refunded me, I said no and thanked her for her help. After hanging up, I felt proud for standing up for myself. I'm normally a small, quiet person, but that day I felt strong. If the manager had just been decent and processed the refunds when I called, I would never have called the police. Instead, her rudeness and dishonesty got her a felony charge. I worked at a haunted corn maze this year. The job was simple: dress up scary, hide in designated spots, and jump out to scare visitors walking through. With COVID still being a concern, we all wore masks under our costume makeup and followed strict protocols. This night was slow, a Wednesday or Thursday near closing time. I was tired, dirty from crawling around, and just wanted to go home, shower, and crash. My costume was a dead little girl, though most people called me the creepy doll. I heard footsteps approaching my section and ducked into my hiding spot. That's when I heard corn being ripped from stalks. This was against the rules. Visitors aren't supposed to touch the corn, pick it, or throw it. Only workers were allowed to hide in the corn, and even we had to stick to the paths when moving around. I stepped out to address the situation and found a woman with 4 children. The youngest looked about 5, while the oldest was probably around 16 or 17. I told them they couldn't touch the corn and to put down whatever they had taken and continue on the path. Before I could finish, the entitled woman cut me off, telling me not to tell her child what to do and calling me a little girl. The oldest child said sorry they didn't know and tried to take the corn from the youngest child's hands. But the entitled woman told her child not to listen to me, calling me stupid. She said she was taking the corn home to cook. She started stuffing corn into her purse and walked past me, dragging one of her other children along. I tried to explain that she couldn't take corn from the maze and about its quality, but she said she'd call the police if I didn't get out of her face. I told her I'd been nice, but now she needed to remove the corn from her purse or security would escort her out. Her response was to shove me hard. I was wearing a thin dress in the cold, so the fall hurt. The oldest child helped me up and said sorry for his mother before trying to get the corn from her purse. When I saw her smack him on the head and yell at him, I'd had enough. I cut through the corn and went to my co-worker's area. I'd forgotten my emergency whistle, so I asked him to follow the woman out of the corn maze. We're supposed to watch suspicious people, kids who keep going into the corn, potentially drunk visitors, etc. My co-worker agreed to follow her out, so I thought the situation was handled. The woman had been warned. The closing siren rang. Time for us to pack up. I followed one of the exit paths and immediately got caught in commotion. Security pulled me aside while the entitled woman was having a meltdown, screaming about a child harassing her and her angels, claiming a creepy man followed her out, saying she felt unsafe, and wanting me arrested for traumatizing her kids. Security asked what happened. They knew me as the weird worker who'd sing Disney lyrics while getting ready or show up in a onesie. I told them I'd asked her kids not to touch the corn, but she hadn't listened and had packed corn into her purse to eat later. Security looked disgusted. This corn wasn't meant for human consumption. The oldest child asked them not to listen to his mother, saying she was being hysterical again. He said nothing happened like she claimed, except the part about the guy. He admitted that his younger sibling did rip corn from a stalk and that I was just doing my job. The youngest child said their mommy told them to take the corn since it was free. The entitled woman was away from us, crying into the owner's sweater. My co-worker finally came out of the corn maze, probably having helped other guards take out trash. He looked confused. He was wearing a clown mask and carried a chainless chainsaw that he used to chase visitors. The oldest child pointed him out as the dude from earlier. I said I'd asked my co-worker to follow them out because I didn't feel safe doing it myself due to their mother, and I wanted to make sure they didn't break more rules. My co-worker walked over, looking confused based on his body language. We usually work together, so I could read his expressions even with the mask. The entitled woman spotted him and went into another tirade, saying he was the one who stalked her and her children. She said he was a pervert who walks around to kidnap little kids, calling him a 30-year-old man. This woman had already made me want to hit her, but now I started laughing hard. Why? Because my co-worker was a 16-year-old kid whose mother was friends with the owners and several older workers. The entitled woman was losing her mind, confused about why I was laughing and why security wasn't arresting me. The security guard told her that my coworker was staff and only 16 years old. This sent her into a frenzy where she said the corn maze hired human traffickers and we were all conspiring against her. She kept going until my coworker removed his mask to show how young he was. By this point, I was using my dress to wipe off my makeup because it felt gross. The entitled woman stood there, staring at all of us, confused that nobody took her side. I smiled and told her she needed to remove all corn in her possession, or security would escort her out, and maybe she would prefer the sheriff to handle it. The security team banned her from the corn maze premises for as long as I work there, and I plan on working there for a long time. The oldest child mouthed, "Sorry," as they were escorted out, and I just nodded. Poor kid probably deals with this behavior all the time. I started working for this lady who owned a home health agency, and I was running it for her. This job didn't involve direct patient care, just administrative work. When I first started in 2014, things weren't so bad. The owner seemed to like me and trusted me with responsibilities that probably went beyond my official job description. But I didn't mind because I was learning a lot about the healthcare system and business operations. Back then, there was a licensed vocational nurse working in the office named Nina. We got along great and became good work buddies. Sometimes patients would go to her office, and she would shut the door. It was pretty obvious she was admitting them, doing their initial assessments and paperwork to get them into our home health service. I wasn't completely comfortable with this setup because technically, these admissions should be done by a registered nurse, but at least Nina was a nurse with proper training. Things changed when 2015 rolled around. The boss decided to send Nina out into the field to visit patients in their homes, which left me as the only person in the office. That's when things took a turn for the worse. One day, the boss caught me on my break and approached me with what seemed like a casual request. She asked me to help with a patient waiting in my office, explaining that she needed me to take his vitals, document his medications, and enter him into our system. I was shocked and told her that she was asking me to admit the patient, which was far beyond my scope of practice. I told her this could cost me my massage license and possibly result in jail time. She tried to flatter me, insisting that I had the knowledge and experience to handle it. I stood my ground and suggested that since she was a registered nurse, she should do it herself to avoid anyone getting in trouble with the state. When flattery didn't work, she switched tactics and offered me a $50 bonus for each admission I completed. I pretended to be interested in the money and agreed, but I still questioned how I was supposed to determine diagnoses without proper medical documentation. She told me to just Google the medications to see what they're prescribed for and use that information to determine diagnoses. Her suggestion was so illegal that I joked to myself about calling my mom to put money in my future jail account. I knew I needed to handle this situation carefully. If I refused, I might lose my job. If I continued doing these admissions, I could end up in serious legal trouble. I needed a plan to make sure I never had to do this again. I decided to make a mistake on purpose that would show her why having someone without qualifications do admissions was a terrible idea. The patient told me he was taking gabapentin. I knew this medication could be prescribed for multiple conditions, usually pain or anxiety. So I picked seizure disorder as his diagnosis, which is one of the rarest reasons it's prescribed for. When the boss looked at what I had entered, she got really mad. She yelled at me, saying I should have known the medication was for neuropathy. I played dumb, explaining that gabapentin has multiple uses, including seizure disorders. I then told her I had gone back and changed the diagnoses for all patients on gabapentin to seizure disorder and had already sent these changes to the state. I told her I was just trying to be thorough and consistent. I hadn't actually done any of that, but her reaction was great. She lost her cool completely at this point. She frantically explained that my actions would cause many additional development requests from Medicare, needing lots of paperwork and delaying payments. She was really worried about the extra work and money problems this would cause. I acted innocent, saying she'd have to deal with around 50 reviews if my numbers were right. This made her even more upset. She said she would never ask me to do admissions again and wanted me to give back the $50 bonus. I pretended to be sorry for my mistake while trying not to laugh as I walked away. The security cameras must have seen me smiling. My plan worked perfectly. She never asked me to admit another patient again. I was a picky eater as a kid. Picky doesn't really do it justice. I was stubborn, particularly when it came to fruit. My mom was constantly trying to get me to eat healthier, which I saw as a conspiracy against my happiness. All I wanted was chocolate, candy, and anything with sugar that wasn't disguised as healthy. This battle had been going on for months. My mom would put an apple in my lunchbox. I'd trade it for a friend's cookies. She'd blend fruit into smoothies. I'd detect the banana and refuse to drink it. It was tiring for both of us, but mostly for her, I'm sure. One Saturday morning, we were running errands, and I was being difficult. I hadn't eaten breakfast because I rejected the fruit-topped oatmeal she'd made. By mid-morning, my stomach was growling loud enough for people in the next aisle to hear. My mom noticed how cranky I was getting and said we needed to get some food in me. I told her I wasn't cranky at all and just wanted real food. When she asked what I meant by that, I said something good, preferably with chocolate. She let out a deep mom sigh. She then told me that we could go to International House of Pancakes across the street, but I'd have to order something with actual nutritional value. This was a treat since we didn't eat out often. I perked up, already planning to order chocolate chip pancakes with extra whipped cream. When we sat down, my mom took my menu first and looked through it before giving it back to me. She pointed out a section called Rooty Tooty Fresh and Fruity and tried to convince me it sounded good. I made a disgusted face and said no. I wanted the chocolate chip pancakes instead. My mom then gave me a choice, either fruit pancakes here or an egg sandwich at home. This was a classic mom move, and I knew she wasn't bluffing. I slumped in my seat feeling defeated. But then I realized something. We were at International House of Pancakes, not International House of Fresh Produce. Looking around, everything seemed processed and packaged. There weren't even pictures of fresh fruit on the walls or menu. This place definitely wasn't cutting up fresh strawberries in the back. Instead of pointing this out, I decided to be strategic. I said okay to the strawberry pancakes. My mom looked surprised but pleased. She probably thought she'd won this round in our ongoing fruit war. When the waitress came over, my mom ordered for both of us, making sure to mention my healthy choice and even said that I was trying to eat more fruit. The waitress gave me a smile and told me I'd made a good choice before heading off to place our order. We waited, my mom looking pleased while I secretly planned how I'd get dessert later since I was being so good about eating fruit. When the waitress returned with our food, my mom's reaction was big. She gasped out loud. My plate had a stack of pancakes covered in what was clearly not fresh strawberries. It was glistening, red, syrupy strawberry topping, the kind that comes from a can or jar like pie filling. It looked more like strawberry candy sauce than anything like actual fruit. My mom asked the waitress if those were fresh strawberries. The waitress said no, it was their strawberry topping, which is what comes with the Rooty Tooty Fresh and Fruity. When my mom pointed out that the name had Fresh and Fruity, the waitress just shrugged and said that's just what they call it. She then asked if we'd like to order something else. My mom looked at me, then at her wallet, then back at the pancakes. I could see her thinking whether she could afford to waste this meal and buy me something else. She then asked the waitress about ingredients, corn syrup, and red food dye, saying that I was on medication for attention deficit disorder and sometimes those ingredients could mix badly. The waitress left to check with the kitchen, and while she was gone, I looked at my pancakes, trying not to look too excited. This was basically dessert for breakfast, but with my mom's approval. When the waitress returned, she told us there was nothing in the topping that would mix with my medication. My mom sighed again and told me it was fine, though she said it wasn't what she expected, but at least it was technically fruit. I asked if I could eat it, and when she said yes, I started eating right away before she could change her mind. It was delicious, sweet, syrupy, and nothing like the fresh fruit she'd been trying to get me to eat. The pancakes were fluffy, and the canned strawberry topping was warm and sugary. It was like eating strawberry shortcake for breakfast. I finished every bite while my mom picked at her egg white omelet. I could tell she was annoyed at being outsmarted by both me and International House of Pancakes menu description. As we were leaving, she said this wasn't what she meant by eating more fruit. I replied that it had strawberries, they were just improved. She said rather dryly that they were improved with about a cup of sugar. I then asked if this meant I'd eat my fruit for the day. She laughed and said no. Canned strawberry topping didn't count as a serving of fruit. I suggested that maybe she should just give me canned fruit instead of fresh ones, since I liked it so much. She said we'd see, but said at least I ate something with strawberry molecules in it, which she supposed was progress. I saw this as a big win in our fruit war. For weeks after, whenever she tried to get me to eat an apple or orange, I'd remind her how much I liked the fruit at International House of Pancakes. Eventually, she found ways to meet in the middle, mixing a little fresh fruit with things I liked, slowly adding more over time. But for that one morning, I had managed to follow her rules while completely changing her plans. And those canned strawberries on pancakes were pretty darn good. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.